Welcome to Sandbox Ep.05 from Buro Happold. This week, instead of taking a retrospective look, we are taking a leap into the future. Lara Balazs, energy consultant with Buro Happold, explores the issues we'll be discussing in our forthcoming episode, Weathering Heights. We'll be discussing how we can combat overheating as well as freezing when inside all types of buildings. What passive interventions could we employ? And what less energy-intensive sustainable methods could be put into place for active heating and cooling? It's a hot topic with a cold, sharp edge. But how we respond now to the climate challenge becomes ever more urgent and imperative.
In the UK, we are used to talking about reducing heat demand and switching from heating our buildings using fossil fuels to electricity. In our changing climate, we also need to increase discussion around managing overheating of our buildings. Our upcoming episode, Weathering Heights, aims to do just that. We will be talking about how passive and active measures can be used to reduce overheating, and how both design and operation of buildings can make a real difference in our cooling burden. Thankfully, we're not directly burning fossil fuels for cooling on site, but any increase of active cooling of buildings will result in increases in electricity demand. Our developer and design team friends will be all too familiar with the big constraint on electrifying everything, grid capacity. In Weathering Heights, we will get into how minimizing cooling demand, delivering cooling efficiently, and the use of smart technologies can result in a lower grid capacity burden. Part of this place-based approach means thinking more about how buildings in an area can share energy. Because cooling is just moving heat from one place to another, a place-based strategy is important, especially in urban environments, to limit how much energy is wasted. In the episode, we'll talk more about projects that use the heat rejected through cooling to heat other buildings in the area, using heat networks and ambient loop networks. As designers, we're used to dealing with uncertainty. We'll be discussing some of the unknowns that we deal with as designers and how different design approaches and tools can deal with this, meaning that we can better model the in-use cooling demand of buildings. People are the first unknown. Particularly in residential buildings, it can be challenging to assess overheating, as occupants are much less predictable than those in offices, for example. We'll talk more about how we manage for these uncertainties and use methodologies such as CIBSE M59 to assess overheating risk in homes. Another unknown is the climate. We'll talk about how weather files are used to model overheating and how we can run scenarios for future climate to assess future overheating risks in buildings in a more extreme climate. All of these models have uncertainty, which results in a difference between model performance and what is seen in use. By undertaking post-occupancy evaluation and in-use monitoring, we can diagnose issues with the operation of buildings to identify whether design intent doesn't line up with real-life performance. In the episode, we'll talk more about how Buro Happold uses tools like digital twins to run lots of what-if scenarios to test different solutions.
It has never been clearer that Earth's future, our future, is dependent on the critical decisions, be it infrastructural, behavioural, political, educational, communal, or individual, we take right now. So keep an eye out for the next episode of Sandbox, which will be available from Thursday, 26 September in all your usual podcast places. Lara will be joined on our expert panel by Buro Happold's Tom Newby and our special guest, Smith Mordack, Chief Executive of the UK Green Building Council. As always, I, Andy Duncan, will be the medium-sized host asking the big questions. Don't forget to subscribe to follow the show and join the conversation on social media. Just use the hashtag #BHSandbox. Goodbye for now, dear listeners.